As much as She-Hulk tried, she couldn't get Kevin to reveal exactly when we're getting the X-Men, but it's clear they are on their way. With the tiny teases we've gotten so far, the MCU is building up to have mutants play an important role in the MCU going forward. And that brings me to everyone's favorite cigar-chomping Canadian, Wolverine. In today's video, I'll be discussing what role Wolverine might play in the MCU and the impact he'll have on the overall story of the mutants. Do you want to see him take center stage again, or would you prefer if he took a step to the side? Let's discuss right now. Well, we may not know much about a new Wolverine in the MCU, but we're getting the old one back. Yeah, Ryan Reynolds basically broke the internet by revealing that Deadpool 3 will be a buddy movie starring Reynolds and Hugh Jackman back as Wolverine. And that's crazy. It's something everyone has sort of talked about for so long that it seemed like it would never happen. And with the Logan movie serving as a fitting swan song to Jackman's Wolverine, it seemed like the plans just wouldn't come together for a Deadpool team-up. But who knew? All we had to do was wait a few years. So yes, Deadpool and Jackman's Wolverine are officially entering the MCU together. And while we are all probably expecting a fourth wall breaking chaotic adventure from the Merc with the Mouth, there's a bigger question mark hanging over Wolverine's head. It seems like Deadpool 3 will be the movie that brings in all the mutants fully into the MCU, right? I mean, looking at the lineup of Phase 5, we don't see a lot of mutant inclusion unless something like Loki Season 2 does something surprising. With Deadpool 3 being the first movie of Phase 6, barring any major schedule changes, that seems like it would be the perfect place to integrate the mutants into whatever the MCU plans to do with them. So if we look at Deadpool 3 as the full mutant introduction, then it's actually really fitting that Jackman's Wolverine is in it. I know there are some folks not as excited about the Wolverine-Deadpool team-up since it just feels like an excuse for Reynolds and Jackman to hang out together, but I think this could actually be a really important movie for mutants, and to let Jackman's Wolverine be in it and frame it around him, ushering in the next era of mutants for the MCU is so fitting, right? But now here's the big question I have with Jackman's return. Is this going to be a permanent thing? I don't think so. As much as I'm sure we would all love for them to announce that Jackman is going to be Wolverine forever in the MCU, I just don't see that happening. But because Wolverine is such an important and popular character, they can't just keep him on the shelf. So maybe whoever is going to be the MCU's permanent Wolverine should also be in Deadpool 3. That way we could have a true passing of the torch moment and everyone can get on board with it a bit easier. Maybe we could have an adventure where Deadpool picks up Jackman's Wolverine on the way to the MCU and somehow their actions bring in the next generation, and then Deadpool and Wolverine go off to have more adventures in other universes while leaving the new crop of mutants and fan favorite characters with us. Like, again, I'm operating with the mindset that this will truly be Jackman's final time donning the claws in a fun epilogue adventure to go along with the fantastic Logan movie, but they could overall still have him basically be the foundation for the MCU mutants, which I think is kind of perfect. So for most of my next point, I'm going to talk like we're getting a new Wolverine and how that new Wolverine will function in the MCU. Near the end of this point, I'll discuss what it would look like if Jackman's Wolverine was the MCU's new Wolverine, just to add that perspective in as well, but for now, let's focus on the new. Right now, there's a completely clean slate. After years of speculation about how the mutants would be included in the superhero franchise, it seems like they're just going with, oh, they've been here the whole time. That falls in line with Miss Marvel's tweaked origin, as well as them highlighting Namor's mutation that allows him to fly. Before this, I always thought the easiest way would be to just place all the mutants in an alternate universe and then merge them over with ours during this multiverse saga. I even thought it would be better if whatever universe the X-Men were in was set in the 90s, as sort of like a continuation of the X-Men animated series, so they could introduce already established X-Men and sidestep the pesky Magneto backstory problem we'd have with having our timeline be in the 2020s. But nope, they threw that right out the window when they said that Miss Marvel had a mutation. But besides Miss Marvel and Namor, there has been one other specific mutant reference in our own universe. In She-Hulk, there was a headline about a man with metal claws starting a bar fight, which was obviously a nod to Wolverine. Yes, She-Hulk has established itself as more of a meta commentary about how we all search for Easter eggs like that, and then it essentially broke the universe with the introduction of the all-knowing algorithm Kevin, so I understand that this Wolverine reference has to be taken with a grain of salt. But if it is serious, that means Wolverine is out there, presumably lying low. And this is where you could tie in recent events in the MCU to Wolverine and the X-Men's larger story. The foundation that the X-Men are built on is the fact that they're outsiders who look and act differently, and society shuns them because of it. Discrimination has been one of the core components of the X-Men since they began, and maybe Wolverine has experienced enough of that in his long life, which is why he's decided to stay on the down low. In the Fox X-Men movies, Wolverine sort of fell in with the X-Men after encountering Rogue, and then a whole series of shenanigans happened. But what if in our timeline, Wolverine never got a chance to meet Professor X and the whole school for mutants? What if the X-Men are operating and functioning in secret at the moment, and Wolverine is off doing his own thing in semi-isolation? That would track with what we know about the character and give him a chance to not only undergo a slightly similar character arc as Jackman's Wolverine, but go about things differently. This would allow the X-Men to stand on their own and be their own team without the shadow of Wolverine lurking around them, while also giving Wolverine the option to jump around and interact with different teams and heroes over time. I think that's a win-win. We want to see Wolverine with other heroes, but we also want the other X-Men to be given enough time to shine. So imagine if the X-Men get their own movie with a brand new team, while in the meantime we get things like Wolverine teaming up with Spider-Man, or the Thunderbolts, or having him on X-Force like in the comics, or even having him on whatever darker team Blade seems to be establishing with the Black Knight. Heck, even throw him over to the monster side and have him team up with Werewolf by Night and Man-Thing. I'm just saying, Wolverine works in just about any project, and having him out on his own, not necessarily on the X-Men, might be the most beneficial thing. And that would make Logan the official mediator between the X-Men and the Avengers. He could act like the bridge between the two groups by successfully being connected with everyone. And yeah, all that is based off of having a new Wolverine, which I think is just the better choice in the long run. With a new Wolverine that is establishing relationships with a lot of different heroes, it allows us the chance to get to know him the best. As other characters learn about this gruff, no-nonsense hothead with a heart of gold, so do we, and that helps with things in the long run. But yes, after all of that, there is a case to be made that Jackman's Wolverine should stick around for the foreseeable future. I mean, why not? Jackman has always talked about wanting to be in the MCU, and you're saying that now he finally has his chance, he's just going to do it once and walk away again? I don't know about that. I mean, Hugh, you don't have to be that level of buff again. He's always talked about how difficult superhero shape was, and his Wolverine was a 6'3" muscle-clad hunk. But anyone who knows the character of Wolverine from the comics knows that that's not the true comic representation. Like, usually he's only 5'3" in the comics, and more of a stocky, wide-framed beefcake than just a ripped superhero. That means Hugh can let himself go a little bit if he wants. I think if the die-hard Jackman Wolverine fans had a choice between either having Jackman back without ever taking his shirt off, or no Jackman at all, they would choose to have Jackman back. And also, with modern CGI wizardry, it's not like Jackman has to push himself as hard as he probably did before. This would also sidestep the problem that I see with the new Wolverine. I understand that the MCU would need to cast someone younger so that they can lock down the actor for like 10 years, but I like the idea of an older looking Wolverine. It would fall in line with the character feeling like he's incredibly old and marches to the beat of his own drum. Admittedly, that's just a minor thing and not a super important character trait, but if they do want someone a little older, then why would they not just go with Jackman? And I'm not saying the idea of an older Wolverine is the best idea, but I do think it would better serve the MCU and the mutants overall. Obviously, I don't just want an old man Logan for the sake of rehashing the events of the Logan movie, but rather I want him a little older so that he could be in a more supporting role, especially to the other mutants. You've probably seen a lot of fan casting and slight teases for whoever will be the next Wolverine, with one of the biggest names tossed around being rising star Taron Egerton. Seems like recently, whenever there's an interview, the interviewer will always ask Taron about Wolverine, and the actor has expressed interest in the role in the past. But my thing is, you don't cast Taron Egerton as Wolverine unless you plan on making him the star of the show again. And let's say the MCU ignores all I've said so far. Let's say they cast a young Wolverine, stick him on the X-Men, and then establish him as the central character for mutants in the entire MCU like he was in the Fox universe. I'm sure that would all work fine, but I just don't think that's for the best. This video started with saying how Wolverine will change everything we know about the mutants, and maybe the best way for Wolverine to do that would be to step aside. Jackman's Wolverine was this charisma powerhouse where we just wanted to watch him do things, which explains why not only did he show up in almost every X-Men movie, but also had his own trilogy of solo films. But that didn't leave a lot of room for other characters. By taking on a more subdued role than before in the MCU now, we could have characters like a Cyclops get their official time in the spotlight. Wolverine is a great character, one of the best that Marvel has, and it's important that the MCU finds the balance between not just rehashing what the Fox movie did, but also establishing his importance to the mutants in the MCU. It's a tricky tightrope to walk, but I have faith that either Jackman or whoever new can pull it off. But I don't know, what do you guys think? Should Wolverine be a side character or a main character in the MCU? I do keep going back and forth. I think that overall, after everything I just presented, you could make the case that Wolverine should be a side character, but also do so in a way that makes him important in ushering in the next era of mutants, as well as could probably stick around in supporting roles and team him up with other heroes down the line. Like, have him be the jumping off point to introducing mutants in the MCU, and then let those mutants establish their own X-Men team and have their own series of movies with Wolverine only appearing a little bit in them. Then in other projects, you could have the big Wolverine versus Hulk fight that we all want to see, or any of the other great solo Wolverine stories that we haven't adapted yet. I think though, overall, whatever Wolverine's role is, whether it be big or small, I think this proves that Wolverine will always be an important mutant to whatever mutant story is being told. Now I'm just anxious to see how it all unfolds. Do you think any other previously non-mutant heroes might be revealed to be mutants in the MCU? I wonder if the Miss Marvel thing was an anomaly, or if that's going to be the norm going forward. That's exciting to think about, right? Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching CBR. See you next time.